We're heading into this story about the BRICS expansion. And I think the United States needs to get prepared. A couple of nights ago, I covered the story about the BRICS summit taking place in Africa, in South Africa. I showed you videos of Xi Jinping stepping off the plane, and people were like, here he comes. This is big. This is only like the second time he traveled in order to meet with them, right? Well, now there has been an expansion of BRICS. And I think you're going to want to hear the countries that have been invited to join. So there were countries that submitted applications to join BRICS. These countries did. There's other ones as well. Not all of them were invited. But these countries that said they wanted to join, BRICS has now offered them the invitation. And I think you need to see who these countries are, because this is going to be a totally different time for the United States.
Leaders of the BRICS alliance of 5 nations have invited another 6 countries to join. They are Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The annual
Saudi Arabia. Let me put on the caps for this one. This is important. Let me go back. I'm sorry, so you can see the names. Listen to this.
Another 6 countries to join. They are Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United
Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia. But Iran and Saudi Arabia, that's where it gets dangerous, right? Let me let her continue. I'm going to tell you why.
Arab Emirates. The annual BRICS summit is being held in Johannesburg. The leaders of Brazil, India, China, and South Africa are there, while Russia's president is on video link from Moscow. The South African president made the expansion announcement.
We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
In just a couple of months, there goes the petrodollar. There goes this tight buddy-buddy relationship with the United States government and Saudi Arabia. Because what's Saudi Arabia going to do? How are you going to play both sides? Saudi Arabia going to be like, yeah, we're still cool with you, U.S., but we are part of BRICS now. And if there tends to be any type of conflicts with one of the countries that's a part of BRICS with the United States government, whose side is Saudi Arabia going to take? They're probably going to take the BRICS side because they're a part of BRICS now. You see where this goes? So what does the U.S. do? The U.S. has this relationship with Saudi Arabia because of oil, right? So what do they do from here? Any word from the Biden administration? No? About this? Let's continue.
And our correspondent Fahmi Miller is joining us live from Johannesburg. BRICS group attracting a level of interest rarely seen since its founding in 2014. Fahmi, the dozens of countries expressed their interest in joining, but only 6 have been accepted for now.
Yeah,
it's likely, Elizabeth, that the criteria was pretty tight in terms of who they might admit. There's been a lot of debate amongst these BRICS members around who should be admitted, when that should be done. And looking at who they've included in this admission, we see also increased representation from African countries, Ethiopia and Egypt. And South Africa has been squarely behind that, wanting African countries, the global south, to have a bigger place within this grouping. But to give us greater insight into what might have informed this decision, we're speaking to Michael Bossacu, a global affairs analyst. Now, Michael, what is likely behind the admission of these 6 new members? What is it that would have taken them into the BRICS grouping?
Sure. Well, it looks like China was very, very keen to expand BRICS. In fact, the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said it's going to breathe new vitality into the bloc. for sure it will. But the choice is very interesting. So we have Argentina, so more representation from South America, Egypt, Ethiopia, African continent. Ethiopia was, I think, a little bit unexpected. Iran, I have a suspicion there might have been some Russian maneuvering behind that. They're close allies. And then Saudi Arabia and UAE, that signals to me more cash infusion into the development bank. Missing there was Indonesia and Mexico. We were expecting them to come in as well.
So let me pause here. So that was another thing I mentioned a couple of nights ago about Mexico, because last year I thought I did talk about, I read an article on here that Mexico was interested in joining, but I noticed when we talked about the summit a couple of nights ago, Mexico was not on that list. So that gives you an update in reference to that. But what I got to say is this, when we're talking about Saudi Arabia, we're talking about Iran and some of these other countries. Look, when people tell me that they don't care about foreign policy, they don't care about what's happening across the sea, and I say, well, you should care, because foreign policy is domestic policy. If you think that this is not going to have an impact on the United States, you are wrong. One of the goals that they want of BRICS is to transition away from the US dollar, to create their own currency. So if that were to happen, what does that do to the US dollar? But honestly, you can't really become upset with them. You really can't. The way these countries have been treated by the US government for years, decades, what do you expect them to do? At some point, they're going to fight back. And what's a better way of fighting back other than war? Forming coalitions with other countries. Moving away from the US dollar and having your own currency. That's a different type of warfare, if you think about it. So I hope this is a wake-up call. I hope this is a wake-up call for the US, but I don't know. I don't know.
We've repeatedly heard from the existing leadership of BRICS that this is about unity, it's about the global south, greater representation, but this comes amid heightening global tensions. While BRICS may be forming a more solid bloc globally, are there concerns around greater fragmentation?
Oh, absolutely. A couple of quick things. One is we're seeing the deterioration of these multilateral for G7, G20, APEC even, watered down communiques or none whatsoever. At least here they managed to come out with quite a big announcement about the expansion. But when you see countries like Iran coming in, and also you listen to the rhetoric coming out of the conference, for example, from people like Mr. Lula of Brazil, a lot of talk here about not using the US dollar anymore, leveling the playing field for African countries. You see quite the fragmentation. I think, just quickly, I think it's got to the point where good luck to America trying to win back the loyalty of some of these African countries. I think a lot of them are shifting more towards this direction.
There you have it. Good luck, he said. Good luck to the US, because those African countries are shifting more towards that direction. And you can't blame those African countries. They've had their resources stolen from them since the beginning of time. So if they're given this opportunity, obviously they're going to take it. Now, did you notice something? When we talk about BRICS, you see all of those leaders sitting at a table. They're trying to create a multipolar world. There's no leader of the BRICS. Does that make sense? Whereas with the United States, the US has other allies that are part of the West, like France, the UK, etc. But the US is always telling them what to do. This has gone on forever. Even when I was on George Galloway's show, George Galloway said we usually follow the lead of the US. We don't have a horizontal relationship with those countries. They follow our lead. When Germany chose to send Leopard tanks into Ukraine, that wasn't just something they just thought of off the top of their head. The majority of the people in Germany did not want that to happen, but Germany went along with it because they were following the lead of the US government. So when Joe Biden announced that he was going to send the tanks in, Germany said, well, we feel like our hand is forced, so we got to do it too. That's not a horizontal relationship when the US government is calling all the shots. So if you have all these other countries come together and they can create a multipolar world where there isn't one single country being the leader and they all are at the same level, that could change the damn game. And it says so here. Iran and Saudi Arabia are among 6 nations set to join China and Russia in the BRICS economic bloc. Now, this is from AP News. And it says here, Iran, Saudi Arabia were among 6 countries invited Thursday to join BRICS blocs of developing economies in a move that showed signs of, strengthening a China-Russia coalition as tensions with the West spiral higher. The UAE, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia were also set to enter BRICS from January 1st, 2024, joining current members Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa to make an 11-nation bloc. NATO what? NATO who? Danny Haifong was actually the first person I saw announce this on Twitter. Danny said BRICS welcomes Argentina, Egypt, Iran, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Ethiopia to BRICS. BRICS now makes up over 37% of global GDP, more than 44% of global oil reserves, and more than 80% of global oil production. Bye-bye U.S. hegemony. There you go. And you know, it didn't have to be this way. But here we are.